Hey everybody, how you doing? Bill Colarulo back for another Legal Hands to the Face podcast. Today we're going to talk about that Eagles-Jets preseason game that ended in a tie. We're going to talk about that quarterback trade nobody saw coming. And we're going to be joined by Philadelphia sports broadcasting legend Steve Levy to talk about his good friend Dick Vermeil and his hopeful bid for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Roll the intro.
The Legal Hands to the Face podcast with Bill Colarulo.
All right, guys, so if the preseason couldn't get any worse, these preseason games are just brutal to watch. The fact that they make season ticket holders pay full price for these tickets is really criminal. But if it couldn't get any worse, we had a weather delay, then we had a tie. Come on. And no starters played. But all in all, I was kind of happy with the weather delay because it gave us an opportunity to see a little bit of Nick Sirianni mic'd up. If you were watching the broadcast, they had to fill some time during the delay. So they showed some clips of Nick Sirianni mic'd up during practice. And time will tell whether or not this guy knows his X's and O's, whether he's a good game day coach. But what I love, and we've talked about this in prior episodes, is the culture he's bringing to the Eagles. If you watch that, he's mic'd up, he comes out to practice. He goes over and he meets every single member of the media that's there. He says hello to them. The ones that he didn't know, he introduces himself. He just seems like a genuinely good guy. But what I'd like to see more was when he was mic'd up, what he was teaching and what he was preaching at practice were fundamentals. And then on the other side of the ball, everything was strips, strips, strips. Make it a habit. Go for the strip. They have been focused with a real emphasis on trying to cause turnovers this year. I think you're going to see a lot of turnovers. That's been something the Eagles defense has struggled with in the past, but that's this coaching staff, Nick Sirianni, the defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon. It's all about stripping that football and going for turnovers. I'm excited to see it. Well, then we get into the game itself, and no starters played. Now, I don't know if they were anticipating starters playing or not, but once there was a weather delay, it made a lot of sense to pull all of your starters out of that game. Not only was there the delay itself, but the MetLife Stadium up in North Jersey got so much rain in a short period of time that the field actually began to bubble. So you never want to put your players in a position where they could be injured, especially for a preseason game. Look at what just happened to the Baltimore Ravens. They lose their starting running back, J.K. Dobbins, for the entire season because he tears his ACL in a meaningless game. That would be horrible. As Philadelphia fans, if we saw one of our starters get hurt in a meaningless game against the Jets because of the weather or because of the field, we would be angry, right? So now there's all this talk. Should they have played? Should Jalen Hurts have played? I'm completely okay with them not playing, especially if you listen and you read about what was going on during those joint practices this week with the Jets. A very, very intense 2 days of practice, a very physical 2 days of practice, especially Wednesday. The game was on Friday. That's a quick turnaround. If you've played football, these guys, you're hitting hard. You're sore after a joint practice. To have two of them back to back and have one that was described by everybody who was there as an extremely physical practice, you don't want your starters then playing again 2 days later in bad weather with a delay and all that. So I'm completely okay with it. It's all going to come down to what we see on the field in less than 2 weeks in that opener against the Atlanta Falcons. So I'm okay with it. But looking at the game itself, ends in a tie. But outside of that, some of the positives that I did like to see is we saw Joe Flacco bounce back. I wasn't concerned anyway, but a lot of people on the local radio stations and the callers, Joe Flacco's lost it. They got to get somebody better in here. He's a seasoned veteran. He's a Super Bowl MVP. He's going to be fine. You saw it. He bounced back. He had a really good first half in that preseason game. But what I loved was what you saw from Boston Scott out of the backfield. We've talked in other episodes about how Nick Sirianni really wants this offense to have running backs that can catch the ball out of the backfield and be that special weapon. That is very difficult. It's very big, matchup issues. When you have a running back that can catch the football, you put three receivers on the field, the corners are most likely going to take those receivers. So who's stuck guarding that running back? It's going to be a linebacker. So if you have a running back that can catch the football, it's a real advantage. And Boston Scott looked really, really good. He had that long touchdown catch and run, and that move he put on that corner was just nasty. Nasty move he puts on for the touchdown. So it was good to see him there. And another guy we've been talking a lot about, this rookie out of Memphis, Kenny Gainwell. Man, does he look like he's going to be a player. He's really carved himself out. He's going to have a big role in this offense. You know, he can not only catch the ball out of the backfield that we've been talking about, but if you watched the game against the Jets, he can run. He can run between the tackles as well, which is going to be a true asset to this team. You know, the running back room looks like it's going to be a real strength for this offense. You obviously have Miles Sanders at the top, who is a threat to hit a home run every time he touches the ball. I mean, we saw that last year. This guy is a home run hitter. Anytime he touches the ball, it can be a long run. It could be a long touchdown run. And then you have Jordan Howard, who when they signed Jordan Howard, I really thought he was just going to be a body for camp. Yeah, I didn't think this was going to be a guy that was going to make this team, but it looks like he's going to have a big role. I think he's going to be your bruiser. I think he's going to be your short yardage guy, your goal line guy. And then behind him, you have two running backs that can catch the ball out of the backfield, Boston Scott, Kenny Gainwell. You know, so these four running backs, I think, are going to have a big role on this team, and I think they're going to be some big weapons for this offense, especially if you add in the wide receiver core that we're so excited about with Devontae Smith. You hope to see that big jump from Jalen Reagor. Obviously, last year was a disappointing season for him, but looks like he's having a good training camp. Started out a little slow, didn't pass his conditioning test, but he's coming on strong. If you've watched any highlights from practices, man, he's made some highlight reel catches, like, you know, Odell Beckham style catches in these one-on-one drills. So you'd like to see a big jump from him. And then another guy we're real excited about is Quez Watkins. So you got those those four running backs, those three wide receivers. If our offensive line can stay healthy, they weren't able to do it last year, but if the offensive line can stay healthy, this offense can be very dangerous. You know, they're going to be a very dangerous offense. I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see, you know, Jalen Hurts. You know, flipping to the other side, defense, it's really hard to judge the defense in that Jets game. No starters really played. You know, one thing I didn't like to see is Michael Jacquet on that red zone. Doesn't get his hands on the receiver at all off the line. Way too easy of a release. Way too easy of a touchdown. Misplayed the ball. You know, you don't like to see that. But other than that, Jacquet kind of came on a little bit. He played okay. Had, I think, 7 tackles in the game. So not a horrible game for him. But, you know, our secondary is kind of a question mark. I think the cornerbacks are going to be okay. You got Darius Slay on one side, Steven Nelson on the other side. But the big question mark is going to be our safeties. You know, Rodney McLeod still has not come off that physically unable to perform list, the PUP list. That's going to be a big question mark when they get down to their 53-man roster. Is Rodney McLeod on the active roster, or is he going to be on the physically unable to perform list? The reason that's so important is if he starts the season on that PUP list, he's not eligible until after week 7. So, you know, you'd want to see, we got to monitor that. Hopefully he's going to come back before that. Had an injury last year he's still recovering from. But our safeties, ever since Malcolm Jenkins left, not only was Rodney McLeod probably our best safety, he's also the leader of that defense. So we got to see how that looks. They did bring in Anthony Harris this year, so we'll see how he does. But that's the one question mark I think on this defense is going to be their safeties. Their defensive line should be a strength. I thought the young guys played well again. I keep talking about him. Milton Williams, I think he's going to be a stud. Linebacking core looks improved. So, you know, time will tell. We're going to find out in less than 2 weeks, and I'm excited about it. And one more guy, you know, we obviously have to talk about. He's been tough to watch over the last couple of years, is J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Finally, we saw something from J.J. in this game. He had a couple of nice catches. He had that one catch at the end of the half on a broken play for a long touchdown. But ultimately, in my opinion, I don't think it's going to be enough for him to survive cuts. They got to get down to 53. There's basically 3 wide receivers fighting for 2 spots. I mean, we know Reagor, Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins, and Greg Ward are going to make this team. If they keep 6 wide receivers, that means there's 2 more spots, and there's really 3 guys fighting for it. It's Travis Fulgham, Jonathan Hightower, and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. I think Hightower's probably a guarantee to make this team because he also returns kicks on kickoffs. So now it's going to come down between Fulgham and J.J. And I think you got to keep Fulgham. I think he's got more upside. I think we saw it last year. He hasn't had a great camp. He hasn't looked great. But I think Fulgham's got more upside. We kind of know who J.J. Arcega-Whiteside is. He's had plenty of opportunities. And unfortunately, he's not who they thought he was when they drafted him. So I don't think that J.J. did enough to make this team. But we'll find out soon. We will find out soon. But what's crazy, the Eagles, never boring. Never boring. Even after a tie in a preseason game, never boring. They make a trade nobody saw coming. They send a conditional 6th-round draft pick to the Jacksonville Jaguars for quarterback Gardner Minshew. I think it's a great move. I think it's an absolute great move. They got better with that trade. They gave up pretty much nothing in a 6th-round pick, and they get a guy, a quarterback, who has started for 2 years in Jacksonville. And although the Jaguars didn't have a good record, he's been one of the bright spots on that team. He's actually played pretty well. Obviously, if you're following football, the Jaguars drafted Trevor Lawrence, number 1 overall. They don't need Gardner Minshew anymore. So they basically gave him away to the Eagles. He's still on his rookie contract. You're not paying him a lot of money. And the quarterback room got better. You got Jalen Hurts, and now you also have Joe Flacco, a former Super Bowl MVP, and you bring in a guy like Gardner Minshew. Now, all the talk on social media and local sports radio is, what is this going to do to Jalen Hurts' psyche? People need to calm down. It's not going to do anything to Jalen Hurts' psyche. Gardner Minshew is not coming in here to become the starter on this team. He's coming in here because we know how important having a strong quarterback room is. You go back to 2017. Eagles are the best team in the league when their starting quarterback goes down, Carson Wentz, out for the year. If you didn't have Nick Foles, they don't win Super Bowl 52. So the Eagles, especially after what they saw happen in 2017, are going to invest a lot into that quarterback room. Not only their starter, but their backups. You need to have guys that can come in and win games. Hopefully they don't need them. Hopefully Jalen Hurts stays healthy. But they added a game this year. There are now 17 regular season games. That's a lot of games. It's going to take a physical toll on a lot of people. Not to mention COVID-19. So you never know. Even if Jalen Hurts is vaccinated, there are players being put into COVID protocols, vaccinated players who may test positive. You have to make sure you have contingency plans in place. Bringing Gardner Minshew on, only a 6th-round draft pick, is a great, great move. I'm all for it. And it is not going to mess with Jalen Hurts' psyche. If you know anything about this guy and the adversity he went through at Alabama and then transferring to Oklahoma, it's not a guy that's going to get affected by you bringing in a 3rd-string quarterback. And honestly, if it did affect his psyche, he's not the starting quarterback you want on your team anyway. Now, that was one of the problems I had with Carson Wentz. They draft Jalen Hurts, and Carson Wentz was offended, and it hurt his feelings, and he didn't rise to the occasion of competition. Now, I don't think they drafted Jalen Hurts to replace Carson Wentz. I think they drafted him for the same reason they just signed Gardner Minshew. It makes sense to have a backup that could come in and win football games. But for whatever reason, Carson Wentz had the worst season of his career following Jalen Hurts being drafted. You don't want a starting quarterback like that. Did Tom Brady falter when they drafted Jimmy Garoppolo? Nope. He got better. Did Aaron Rodgers have a bad season after they drafted Jordan Love? Nope. Had probably one of the best seasons of his NFL career. That's what you want from your starting quarterback. You want a guy that loves competition, where they raise their game, they elevate their game when there's competition. So I think that's what you'll see with Jalen Hurts. I think Gardner Minshew is going to be a great addition to this quarterback room, and just a great all-around move. Very low risk, 6th-round pick, still on a rookie contract. Quarterback room got better. You may see them move Joe Flacco. I don't think that they will. Flacco's only got 1 year on his deal. Minshew has 2. I think you keep Flacco, especially with Gardner Minshew coming in this late into the preseason. He's not going to be ready. He's not going to know the offense. I think you keep Flacco for this year along with Minshew. Next year, Minshew hopefully becomes your backup, and we see Jalen Hurts rise to be that franchise quarterback. So we will see. And next up, I'm extremely, extremely excited to welcome to the show Steve Levy, a Philadelphia sports broadcasting legend who became really, really close during the 1980s with Dick Vermeil and that Philadelphia Eagles team. And we're going to talk about a well-deserved honor for Dick Vermeil. Finally, he's named a finalist for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I'm hoping that he gets voted in. We'll find out, towards the end of the year. But I want to welcome Steve Levy. All right, very excited now to be joined by local news legend Steve Levy. Steve, thanks for coming on the show. Legend, that is right.
And I got to get a dictionary. Hang on, I got to check this. No, you're wrong. I'm not a legend.
Well, in my eyes, you are, and I'm honored that you came on. You're the first guest we've ever had on the podcast, so I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
You and I talked a little bit before the show, and I got to know you a little bit more and found out that you were really close with that 1980s football team, and especially Dick Vermeil, who we're all pulling for, who's now a finalist for the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and if anybody deserves it, he does. He's a not only was he special as a football coach, he's a special human being, just a good human being.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard anyone say anything other than that. I mean, everybody you talk to about Dick Vermeil says just an unbelievable human, like just a good man on all fronts. And I think that's why he's
his wife. They're like the most amazing couple. They ought to do a movie just on those guys. But I'll tell you one piece of trivia about him that most people don't know is you remember seeing lots of commercials he's done for Blue Cross Blue Shield. Well, the reason he's been doing them so long is that they did research on him and how the commercials were being perceived. And he's the only guy, to my knowledge, who got 0 negatives. Every reaction to him on those commercials was a positive. And that never happens. So the public loves him too.
And a lot of people probably don't know. I think I saw A Football Life on the NFL Network at Dick Vermeil. He's an unbelievable winemaker too, if I'm not mistaken.
He, at this moment, as we speak, as we're recording this, he's out in Calistoga, California, which is his hometown, which is the home also of the Vermeil Vineyards. He's always had an interest in wine. As a matter of fact, a few months ago, we had dinner together with Frank LeMaster and Bill Berge and Keith Krepley, that he was the tight end on that team.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy for sure. So you started. You've had the unique perspective of working for Channel 3, 6, and 10 in the city of Philadelphia, right?
Right.
And where were you working during that 1980 Super Bowl run that the Eagles fell just short?
Action News. I was at Channel 6 doing the sports there, and one of the reasons I got so close to the team is that I tore a knee up playing in a charity basketball game for a hospital, and the Eagles surgeon put my knee back together. And the Eagles trainers rehabbed me, and they said that we'll treat you like a player that we're trying to put back on the field on one condition. You have to do everything we tell you while keeping your mouth shut. So I worked out with the team and the Eagles trainers every day for months and months, rehabbing that knee. And the Eagles trainers used to win an award, Trainers of the Year in the NFL. They used to win it every year. And so they rehabbed my knee to such an extent that I later, kept skiing on it. And I did a 5-part series where I tried out for the Eagles, went to training camp, tried out on that rebuilt knee. Those trainers were amazing. And as a consequence, I was in the locker room working out with the team every day for months. I got to know him pretty well.
What can you tell us about your experience trying out for that team and seeing him in action as an NFL head coach?
Well, one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my whole life was when Dick first came here, when he was hired after winning the Rose Bowl when he was head coach at UCLA. And when he got here, he knew that the team was not good. And he said, we're not going to win for the next year or two, but I'm going to lose with good people. And I'm going to find out who wants to play and who won't quit on me. And his training camps were hell. His practices were hell.
As hard as he worked these guys, every team he's ever coached, from Philadelphia to the St. Louis Rams to the Kansas City Chiefs. It looks like he makes really long-lasting relationships with his players.
Well, I'll tell you something very personal. Frank LeMaster, who was a Pro Bowl linebacker on that 1980 championship team, is still today one of my very closest friends. He came out to Colorado for my wedding. I stood up for him at one of his weddings. Frank got beat up pretty well. He played 10 years for the Eagles. And he's this year spent some time in hospitals and in rehab facilities. He's had some back operations and 2 hip replacements. And Dick doesn't just call. Dick visits him more than I do.
Wow.
Dick is there. And he does that for a lot of his players. And you're right. You're absolutely right. He's a human being who cares for his players more than the average coach does.
Yeah, that's impressive. I really hope that he gets voted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, because I'm not sure there's a coach that deserves it more.
Well, yeah, there are a lot of coaches who had his kind of success. Well, not a lot, but there are coaches that have had that kind of success, but there aren't coaches who are the human being like he is, who takes care of it. Leonard Toews, when he sold the Eagles, he fell on some hard times, and Dick was always there for the former owner of the Eagles.
You know, switching gears to the current NFL Philadelphia Eagles, and they have a new head coach in Nick Sirianni, which, from everything I'm reading about training camp, it's a lot different than probably as hard as Dick Vermeil's training camps were. It seems like Nick Sirianni has really short practices. His players don't play in the preseason games. But one similarity that I at least see is he seems to be really focused on cultivating good relationships with his players and caring about his players as human beings. And there's no greater example, like we talked about, than Dick Vermeil. Right,
and there are other similarities that I have read comparing the new coach to Dick. And the shorter practices and not playing them in the preseason games is not totally his doing. There are league rules now based on the players' union that don't allow things to take place the way Dick ran it. You cannot have as much contact as Dick had. There are rules now governing how much contact can take place during practices and during training camp. And so the current NFL management has to abide by these union negotiations.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Things have really, really changed. I mean, even from when I was playing college football, we used to have in training camp, it was 3 practices a day. We'd have triple sessions. Now the NCAA, I don't even think allows you to have back-to-back days of 2 practices. I think it's always just 1 day. So things have really changed over the years, no doubt about that.
Right, and the amount of contact is limited, where a coach would come in like Dick and say, I'm going to find out who wants to play. And contact is the way you do that, of course. And they can't do that today.
Yeah, so a lot of different things. So I don't know how close you've stayed to the Eagles, but do you have any insight, any predictions for what we can expect this coming season?
No, and it would be only as a fan now. So it'd be like talking to any guy on the street, because once I left broadcasting, I don't have those contacts anymore, and the players that I spend time with are the older guys. So, my gut feeling is they're going to have a wide receiver core unlike what we've seen in the past. When that big guy from Alabama was here, not Alabama, from Florida, the one that played with Tebow, the one that got in trouble.
Riley Cooper.
Yeah. Yeah, he was 6'5", but he was slow.
Yeah.
You're going to see 3 guys this year. You're going to see speed that you've not seen from the Eagles wide receivers in a long, if ever.
Yeah,
if ever.
You're
I don't think they've ever had 3 guys this fast.
Yeah, you're definitely right. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago, Howie Roseman, who's had his struggles in the draft, there's no denying that, said they want to get faster, and man, did they. With Devontae Smith and Jalen Reagor and this Quez Watkins. I don't know if you saw in the preseason, but he had a touchdown a couple of weeks ago where he made everybody else on the field look slow, which is hard to do on an NFL field, to make the NFL players look slow. I mean, he is fast.
The 2 or 3 guys who were chasing him on that pass, they were at full speed, and he was pulling away from them.
Yeah,
and that's a gift that some coach, I can't remember who said it, you can't coach speed.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's the one gift that if you and I had it when we were playing, maybe we'd had more success. Frankly, I don't know how much success you had, but I know I didn't have any.
Yeah, same here.
And speed is the one factor that you're going to see different on the Eagles this year. And now they have a couple of running backs who are fast and tough.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think they're going to be better this year than a lot of people think. I mean, I don't have any visions of grandeur that they're going to win a Super Bowl or anything, but I think they're going to be exciting to watch. I think we'll see some improvement. And you're right, the speed factor on offense is going to be fun to watch.
At the quarterback position, too.
Yeah, I really like everything he brings, Jalen Hurts. He seems like he's a leader. It seems like these guys want to play for him. And I think that's a big...
And he says all the right things. And if he means what he says, if he's honest, then I think you've got a dedicated, intelligent guy there.
Well, Steve, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. And as a big thank you, I know that the Philadelphia Animal Welfare Society is near and dear to your heart. We want to make a donation to Paws. And if you want to give us a little... Why is it so near and dear to you?
Well, 15 years ago, when they were first beginning, when they pulled away from the city shelter, Paws is the largest no-kill facility in Philadelphia. My daughter adopted a dog from them, and then she was so enamored with them, she took over. She's the executive director, and there's an Eagles note in there, too. When she took over as executive director of Paws, they had one location. They've got 3. And one of the reasons is when the Eagles hired Michael Vick as quarterback, they called my daughter and said, "We know what we just did. Now how can we fix it?"
Wow.
And so my daughter got into some fundraising for Paws with the Philadelphia Eagles, and now in a low-income neighborhood in Grays Ferry, they built a spay-neuter center with funds that the Eagles helped raise for that spay-neuter center. And it now helps low-income people spay and neuter their pets. And that, of course, solves the stray pet population problem, or helps solve it. So my daughter joined them. She's the executive director, and now they've got 3 locations, saving animals, not killing animals.
Wow, that's awesome. I didn't realize that they had reached out to Paws and made a big donation there. That's a great thing.
It wasn't a donation. They got involved in fundraising.
Oh, even better.
And I forget exactly what the fundraising activities were, but to make up for hiring Michael Vick and what he had done with dog fighting, she was able to build a spay-neuter center in the Grays Ferry section of Philly.
That's awesome. Well, we'll be happy to contribute because that's a great cause. And Steve, thank you again, man. I really can't thank you enough for coming on. You're the first guest ever on the Legal Hands to the Face podcast, so hopefully that'll be something you could put on your long resume one day, right?
Well, if I'm the first one, it can only get better from here.
Well, I appreciate your time, Steve. Thank you so much. All right, guys, that's going to be a wrap for this week's Legal Hands to the Face podcast. We're less than 2 weeks away from the season opener against the Atlanta Falcons. Be sure to like and subscribe because we got a lot more stuff coming.